स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय। मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us bow to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Sri Ramakrishna has responded well to our prayers through his teachings. He has shown the way how to discriminate between real and unreal, how to apply our reasoning. He has dispelled the darkness of ignorance by lighting the lamp of knowledge. And he is leading us towards immortality. And he is answering all our prayers through his practical, spiritual instructions. Then why is it we are not able to experience the result? Why we are not able to discriminate properly what is real and what is unreal? Why there is still darkness of ignorance? It is because we are not following the spiritual instructions given by Sri Ramakrishna in every respect. That's all. It only shows how much we should be serious about our spiritual life. We start spiritual life with all sincerity. Just like the baby, when it is just born, how fantastic, enchanting its face, its smiles, even its cries, its movements, its behavior, everything is so lovely. It's because of complete guilelessness of the child. In the same way, the spiritual aspirant in the beginning, he behaves like the child. Very lovable, and he feels immense peace and joy. But as the child grows, it behaves differently. There is a period called adolescent period. One can become very haughty, arrogant, violent, all sorts of things. Or he can turn out to be very good, gentle, polite, kind, loving. So that adolescent period is a crucial period in one's life. In the same way, in the spiritual life too, there is a period of adolescence. How many people go mad? Instead of growing spiritually, they become worse than even ordinary worldly people. Full of ego, full of anger, full of jealousy, full of hatred, tension, irritation. Horrible. So, one becomes spiritually crippled if the person is not very alert and careful about the spiritual life. It is very important to note this point. We start with spiritual aspirations, but end up in a different way. We should not do that way. It only shows we have to fight very hard against all odds in order to get success in spiritual life. We should never try to harbor our own ego, our own angularities making more and more prominent, yielding to that lower nature of the mind, discarding all spiritual values and traditions and training. What sort of spiritual life is that? So, do you really want spiritual success? Do you really want to conquer death and get immense peace and bliss? Then you have to work hard. You have to struggle very hard. Your attention should be on your efforts more than in anything else. Even the slightest deviation from your spiritual path is very serious from the point of view of your spirituality. So Sri Ramakrishna said to Ishan, live in the world like an ant. The world contains a mixture of truth and untruth, sugar and sand. Be an ant and take the sugar. Again, Sri Ramakrishna compares the world as a mixture of milk and water. Milk and water. The bliss of God consciousness and the pleasure of sense enjoyment. Bliss of God consciousness is milk, pleasure of sense enjoyment is water. Be a swan and drink the milk, leaving the water aside. Sri Ramakrishna, how wonderfully trying to give us practical instructions in a very definite way. If we follow them, why not we get illumination? Why not? Live in the world like a waterfowl. The water clings to the bird, but the bird shakes off. Live in the world like a mud fish. The fish lives in the mud, but its skin is always bright and shining. Again, Sri Ramakrishna tells you, what is this world? It is a mixture of truth and make-believe. Discard the make-believe and take the truth. That's why you are a human being. If you are not discriminating properly, that only shows you are not behaving like a human being. Anyway, if you have to have spiritual success, if you want to totally transform your life into one of spirituality, live in the world, but keep the picture steady on your head. That is to say, keep the mind firmly on God. If you keep the mind on God and do the activities, you will not get irritated. You will not become jealous. You will not create any vengeance against anybody. He once said to the army men, do your duty in the world, but remember that the pestle of death will sometime smash your head. Be alert about it. What a fine teaching. We are not alert. We are so careless. Haphazard in doing things. So there is always danger of becoming more worldly than the worldly man. If you are earnest in your efforts to move Godward, you should know how to harmonize the worldly and spiritual interests. Sri Ramakrishna tells you, live in the world, but be not worldly. There is a saying, make the frog dance before the snake, but let not the snake swallow the frog. All these are words of Sri Ramakrishna. How he is pinpointing all our defects, all our drawbacks and weaknesses. Still we are not opening our eyes properly. We are too dull, too inactive, too stupid. So there is frustration. So there is slip. So there is fall in the spiritual life. A boat may stay in the water, but water shouldn't stay in the boat. An aspirant may live in the world, but the world should not live within him. So, it means lot of training and effort. You must love to repeat the divine mantra. you have received by the Guru. Holy Mother, how nicely she has said to an aspirant. She said, repeat the name of the Lord. As soon as we say repeat the name, immediately the disciple is anxious to know how much time should we have to repeat Swamiji. They are terrified if you tell a little more than what they can do. Even repeating 108 times is a big task. But they want all spiritual benefits. Here Mother is telling, Holy Mother is telling, whose whole life was amidst tremendous household activities. Yet how Mother never missed a day without repeating the divine name of the Lord. So when she says, she's telling the thing to be done. It is not for simply telling. I tell you do whatever best you can. No compromise here. If you want spiritual result, be ready to sacrifice compromises. The moment you give reason, in my account, to my way of evaluation, you are disqualified. Even though you give valid reason. I don't want reason. So Mother is telling, you must love to repeat the divine mantra. Repeat the name of the Lord ceaselessly. How? Like the tickling of that watch. She pointed out a watch there. See how it makes tick, 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 non-stop. Like that you must keep on repeating the name of God. Then only you will develop love towards Him. Always keep to yourself. Don't be inquisitive about others. Gradually increase the period of meditation and prayer and read the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Reading of Sri Ramakrishna is practicing Sri Ramakrishna. Reading is a practice. Reading with wholehearted devotion. That's very important. Life is precious. It's only in this human life you are able to fulfill your spiritual aspiration. In no other life it is possible. You may become one of the gods in the heavens, but you will not have illumination. To get illumination, to get spiritual illumination, to get immense peace and joy, to be freed from bondage, you have to come to this human life. Durlabham Manusya Janmam, Shankaracharya says in the Vivek Chudamani. It's very difficult to get human birth. Having got it, if you don't use it towards fulfilling spiritual aspiration, it's most unfortunate thing. It is the greatest tragedy in your life. Because of that tragedy, you always suffer. Not able to get out of it. Life is precious. What is the world? World is full of traps. trap. Are you aware of that? Every moment you are under the danger of being trapped by the world. Even you may be in the chapel, you may be in the ashram. Even then, you might be trapped by the world. So, what needs to be done? You will have to be a hero. Not telling, oh, I am like this. I have not become spiritually strong. I have got my ego. Why do you talk all? If you have got ego, why do you come here? Why do you want to declare your ego? Spiritual life is a hero's job. Nayamatma balahinela labhyaha. The truth cannot be realized by the weakling. Yielding to lower nature of the mind is the worst type of weakness. The most difficult task is to handle your own weaknesses. You must handle them. You must try to get over them. You need to become strong. Let it take many more lives, doesn't matter. Unless you become strong, you can never have illumination. Unless you are humble, you can never have spiritual success. It is a job of the revolutionary, for it really means inner revolution. You should not be drowsy or dopey. You must be awakened and determined. You will have to go through all the rigors. You will have to pass through all pains and lacerations of life in a continuous and unbroken process of self-regeneration. Our mind is like a computer. A computer can function only with what you feed it. It can manipulate the feed in a baffling variety of ways. But it cannot of itself get the feed. You have to provide the software for the computer to work. So, the grace of the mind depends very much on what we feed it with. Unless we feed it wholesome, unless we feed the mind with holy thoughts, we can't expect its grace. You can't expect manah-prasada. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, manah-prasada, grace of the mind. You will have to train your mind to behave spiritually. Very important point you should note. As soon as you wake up from your bed, immediately feed the mind with the thought, I must behave spiritually. With that thought, the training will begin. And once the mind gets trained, then you will see how we become recipient of grace. Then you feel immense joy in spiritual life. we have to follow all these instructions of Sri Ramakrishna implicitly. All the time being aware of your spiritual aspiration. Then it is possible to discriminate what is real, what is unreal, to reject what is unreal, to develop renunciation, to get rid of all worldliness from the mind. Then you will have real hankering after God. You will really weep for God, as Sri Ramakrishna used to weep. A day is gone. Mother did not reveal. One day is gone. This day is gone. He has shown the way. Whatever he has told was the result of his own experience. There's nothing more to say. Coming to Sri Ramakrishna means stepping into spiritual practice. Talk less, practice more. That's the beauty of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. Let us try to follow. Let us be humble. The more you humble, the more you become nearer to God. Let us not forget this fact. Jai Ramakrishna. Page 478. Well, Brahman alone has become everything. Therefore, to the Vijnani, this world is a mansion's mirth. But to the Jnani, it is a framework of illusion. Ramaprasad described the whole world as a framework of illusion. Another man said to him by way of retort, "This very world is a mansion of mirth. Here I can eat, here drink and make merry. O physician," Ramaprasad belonged to physician caste, "you are a fool. You see only the surface of things." Janaka's might was unsurpassed. What did he lack of the world or the spirit? Holding to one as well as the other, he drank his milk from a brimming cup. The Vijnani enjoys the bliss of God in a richer way. Some have heard of milk, some have seen it, and some have drunk it. The Vijnani has drunk milk, enjoyed it, and been nourished by it. The master remained silent a few moments and then asked Pandit Shashadhar to have a smoke. The Pandit went to the southeast veranda to smoke. Soon he came back to the room and sat on the floor with the devotees. Seated on the small couch, the master continued the conversation. Master said to the Pandit, "Let me tell you something. There are three kinds of ananda, joy. The joy of worldly enjoyment, the joy of worship, and the joy of Brahman. The joy of worldly enjoyment is the joy of lust and gold, which people always enjoy. The joy of worship one enjoys while chanting the name and glories of God. And the joy of Brahman is the joy of God vision. After experiencing the joy of God vision, the rishis of olden times went beyond all rules and conventions. Chaitanya Deva used to experience three spiritual states, the inmost, the semi-conscious and the conscious. In the inmost state, he would see God and go into samadhi. He would be in the state of Jada Samadhi. In the semi-conscious state, he would be partially conscious of the outer world. In the conscious state, he could sing the name and glories of God. Hazra said to the Pandit, "So, your doubts are now solved?" Master to the Pandit, "What is samadhi?" "It is the complete merging of the mind in God consciousness. The jnani experiences Jada Samadhi, in which no trace of I is left. The Samadhi attained through the Bhakti is called Chetana Samadhi. In this Samadhi, there remains the consciousness of I, the I of the servant and master relationship, of the lover and beloved relationship, of the enjoyer and food relationship. God is a master, the devotee is a servant. God is a beloved, the devotee is a lover. God is a food and the devotee is the enjoyer. I don't want to be sugar, I want to eat it." Pandit, "What will happen if God dissolves all of the I, if he changes the enjoyer himself into sugar?" Master said smilingly, "Come, come, tell me what is in your mind. But don't the scriptures mention Narada, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumara?" "Yes, sir, they do." Master said, "Though they were jnanis, yet they wept, they kept the eye of the bhakta. Haven't you read the Bhagavat?" Pandit said, "I have read only part of it, not the whole." Master said, "Pray to God. He is full of compassion. Will he not listen to the words of his devotee? He is the Kalpataru. You will get whatever you desire from him." Pandit said, "I haven't thought deeply about these things before, but now I understand." Master, God keeps a little of I in his devotee even after giving him the knowledge of Brahman. That is, that I is the eye of the devotee, the eye of the jnani. Through that I, the devotee, enjoys the infinite play of God. The pestle, the story is told in the Mahabharata of how the relatives of Krishna quarreled over a fragment of a pestle and exterminated themselves by fighting with one another. The pestle was almost worn out with rubbing. Only a little was left. That fell into the underbush and brought about the destruction of the lunar rays, the rays of the Yadus. The Vijnani retains the eye of the devotee, the eye of the Jnani, in order to taste the bliss of God and teach people. The rishis of old had timid natures. They were easily frightened. Do you know their attitude? It was this: let me somehow get my own salvation. Who cares for others? A hollow piece of driftwood somehow manages to float, but it sinks if even a bird sits on it. But Narad and sages of his kind are like a huge log that not only can float across the other shore, but can carry many animals and other creatures as well. A steamship itself crosses the ocean and also carries people across. Teachers like Narad belong to the class of the Vijnani. They were much more courageous than the other rishis. They are like an expert Satranchi player. You must have noticed how he shouts as he throws the dice. What do I want? 6? No, 5. Here is 5. And every time he throws the dice, he gets the number he wants. He is such a clever player. And while playing, he even twirls his mustaches. A mere jnani trembles with fear. He is like an amateur satrancha player. He is anxious to move his pieces somehow to the safety zone where they won't be overtaken by his opponent. But a Vijnani is not afraid of anything. He has realized both aspects of God, personal and impersonal. He has talked with God. He has enjoyed the bliss of God. It's a joy to merge the mind in the indivisible Brahman through contemplation. And it is also a joy to keep the mind on the Leela, the relative, without dissolving it in the absolute. A mere jnani is a monotonous person. He always analyzes, saying, it is not this, not this. The world is like a dream. But I have raised both my hands, therefore I accept everything. Listen to a story. Once a woman went to see her weaver friend. The weaver, who had been spinning different kinds of silk thread, was very happy to see her friend and said to her friend, I can tell you how happy I am to see you. Let me give you some refreshments. She left the room. The woman looked at the threads of different colors and was tempted. She hid a bundle of thread under one arm. The weaver returned presently with the refreshments and began to feed her guest with great enthusiasm. But looking at the thread, she realized that her friend had taken a bundle. Hitting upon a plan to get it back, she said, Friend, it is so long since I have seen you. This is a day of great joy for me. I feel very much like asking you to dance with me. The friend said, Sister, I am feeling very happy too. So the two friends began to dance together. When the weaver saw that her friend danced without raising her hands, she said, Friend, let us dance with both hands raised. This is a day of great joy. But the guest pressed one arm to her side and danced raising only the other. The weaver said, How is this, friend? Why should you dance with only one hand raised? Dance with me raising both hands. Look at me. See how I dance with both hands raised? But the guest still pressed one arm to her side. She danced with the other hand raised and said with a smile, This is all I know of dancing. The master continued, I don't press my arm to my side. Both my hands are free. I am not afraid of anything. I accept both the Nitya and the Leela, both the absolute and the relative. We shall stop. Questions? Only when you feed your mind with spiritual ideas and try to practice them sincerely, then only your real life has begun. Till then, it's only a fake life, fake, F-A-K-E. Because you are not living a real life in the real sense of the term, so you are suffering. So you are suffering. So suffering is because of our distraction. Because our mind has gone away from God, so we are suffering. we are clinging on to the unreal things, so we are suffering. We are feeding the mind with all sorts of desires, so we are suffering. So, God has given all the facilities, opportunities to start spiritual life. He has given good body, He has given good mind, He has given everything. But still if you don't practice, then whose fault is that? One can take the horse to the riverside. One can even force the horse's face into the water, but the horse should drink it. If it does not drink the water, in spite of taking all the trouble, it is futile. So effort must be there. One should try, one should struggle. Then only you will be able to unfold the spiritual tendencies.